Hey, Shalom, Markin, Supercar Makapash from GMS London, giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, but Hashem, Yahweh Shai, but Shemachach Want to give double honors unto the elders, the apostles of GMS, and Shalom out there to the hopeful elect, teaching the truth in all sincerity. Back again with another video, and I'm going to entitle this one, The US and EU is responsible for millions of deaths, every year. Or something to that effect, right? Because this article here that was done, it's posted up here on the Al Jazeera news website, right? From this, I guess you call it investigation or whatever, right? States, right, by sanctions only. This is not including this is not including all the other types of death that Esau brings into the world, right? You so-called white people, you bring so much death into the world, right? But this is just by sanctions, right? Which overall is like is responsible for so much death every fucking year, right? You are killing millions upon millions every year through your actions, right? But Esau likes to act as if his hands are down fucking clean all the damn time. That he's not the king of violence in this earth. Apparently that's you Jake out there because you niggas can't get along in the ghetto, right? But apparently you're the most violent people on the planet. But Esau is responsible for millions of deaths, tens and hundreds, tens of millions of deaths every year, right, through his various means. But we're just going to go into just the sanctions, right, because that's supposed to be like merciful and humanitarian, right? It's not violent, right? So the so-called white man looks like he's a reasonable fellow, right? He's just going to put sanctions on your country, right, which never affects the people that he has a problem, they have a problem with, like the regimes, the governments of these nations, because they're rich, right? So when they put these sanctions on these nations, it doesn't hurt them, okay? It hurts the people, it hurts the poor, right? Because the whole idea of sanctions is to force these governments to, accept, whatever terms, that these that America or the EU is trying to put on them through the pressure of the people, right? Because they're gonna be so damn fucking bad that they're gonna, rise up and beg and revolt, against you to make you, change, to overturn your decisions or whatever, your regimes or whatever. That's what Esau does. That's how he gains control of nations, by making them suffer to the point of death, right? And so Esau is directly responsible for the deaths of those peoples in those nations, right? He'll put the onus on the leadership, right? Because they're not bowing down to, whatever demands that the US or the EU is making, right? To give away their sovereignty and all this kind of business, right? And to do shitty deals with them, right? And so they put tariffs on, they do sanctions, they do whatever to harm, the people, to try and make the leadership break, right? So it's not the leadership's fault. They just, they want to do their thing, and they have every right to do their thing. They're the rulers, the elected rulers, or whatever the situation is in these nations, right? They have the right to rule their country as they see fit, right? It shouldn't be dictated to by outside external forces, right? But this is what America does. This is what you Edomites do, right? To cripple nations, to gain control over them, to destroy them, to get resources out of them. This is what you do. You're a fucking parasite on the earth, man, right? And this article is going to go into that. All right, so starting with the title, right? It says US and EU sanctions have killed 38 million people since 1970. Right, it's far from a peaceful tool, right? These measures weaponize hunger and deprivation to enforce Western dominance, right? So this, again, just sanctions alone have killed 38 million people since the 1970s, right? And I said it's just one form of Esau's, death arsenal that he uses, all right? Let me grab Psalms 55 verse 21 here. It says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, right? So, when he comes out and says, "Oh, we're gonna put sanctions on this nation," he positions the the opposing nation as the enemy, as the bad guy, as the savage, as the unreasonable, the crazy ones, or whatever he decides to label them as, just like he's doing with Iran right now. All right, they're crazy or whatever, savages. same time old excuses, reasonings, right? That he uses, right? He uses that to make it seem like obviously they're the bad guy in the situation, right? But we don't want to go to war with them. We're not going to go attack them, because we're benevolent and merciful. We're just going to place sanctions on them. Like that's not another form of death and killing. Except you're not killing the military people. Okay, you're killing civilians, which Esau doesn't seem to have a problem with that anyway. Obviously, but it's not an attack on the government or the military, right? Which is what really war is supposed to be. A war is supposed to be fought by people like that fight, right? The military. All right, civilian casualties are meant to be kept to the minimal, but this is a purposefully attack. This is a purposeful attack on the civilian population of these nations that they're doing. Which but yeah, when people hear sanctions, they just think, oh, nothing of it. They're trying to cripple the government, but it's not exactly what they're doing. It's not directly crippling the government, right? So people just don't think about it. They just shrug it off. Oh yeah, they're going for the government, or Putin, yeah, go freeze his assets and all this kind of stuff, right? Put sanctions on this nation, that nation. Yeah, but it's the people that suffer. It's the people that die. And Esau knows this. He's not fucking stupid. All right. But this is what he's actually doing. So it sounds like he's being reasonable and sympathetic, or he's not going to use force. But sanctions is force, just a different way, different version, right? So words of his mouth are smoother than butter, but war is in his heart. His intention is to destroy and to kill. All right. War is in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. Right? So sanctions is not some harmless tool that they use against governments. No, it's not. Okay, it's responsible for killing the civilian populations. Right? So like I said, far from a peaceful tool, these measures weaponize hunger and deprivation to enforce Western dominance. Right? Let's get a couple more before we get into it. Right? So in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14, and no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Right, so he likes to appear like he's being benevolent and merciful, and he's just trying to help the people, or to stop this bad government from doing this and doing that, and getting weapons and whatever the fucking excuses are, right? But he himself just wants to destroy people. So therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Right, so it's very important for him to position himself as the good guy and everything that he does. As you can see on the TV today, right, with Hegseth and Trump and these guys, right? So therefore, it's no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. Okay, so what is the outcomes of these works? Death. The outcomes of these works is death, right? So he's going to receive death. He's going to receive destruction, right? He's going to receive oppression. All right. This is Revelation chapter 6, verse 4. And they went out another horse that was red, okay, which represents Esau, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. Right? Sanctions is a form of taking peace. It ain't just only by war, but there's a whole lot of things Esau is doing that's destroying people. Right? To take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword, right? So he's got a great means of bringing about death. Okay? So, I said this sanction is just a small part of that. So, but this is what this document or article is about, rather, right? The United States and Europe have long used unilateral sanctions as a tool of imperial power to discipline and even destroy global South governments that seek to shake off Western domination, chart an independent path, and establish any kind of a meaningful sovereignty. During the 1970s, there were, on average, about 15 countries under Western unilateral sanctions in any given year. In many cases, these sanctions sought to strangle access to finance and international trade, destabilized industries, and inflame crisis to provoke state collapse. Right? This is what they use sanctions for, to try to achieve. Right? By attacking civilians, basically. Right? For instance, when the popular socialist Salvador Allende was elected to power in Chile in 1970, the US government imposed brutal sanctions on the country. At a September 1970 meeting at the White House, US President Richard Nixon explained the objective was to make Chile's economy scream. The historian Peter Kornbler describes the sanctions as an invisible blockade that cut Chile off from international finance, created social unrest, and paved the way for the US-backed coup that installed the brutal right-wing dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. Since then, the US and Europe have dramatically increased their use of sanctions during the 1990s and 2000s. Sorry, there's two separate sentences. So since then, the US and Europe have dramatically increased their use of sanctions. During the 1990s and the 2000s, an average of 30 countries were under Western unilateral sanctions in any given year. And now, as of the 2020s, it is more than 60. Right? So they're just pressing the shit out of everybody to force them to do what they want them to do. A strikingly high proportion of the countries of the global south. Sanctions often have a huge human toll. Scholars have demonstrated this in several well-known cases, such as the US sanctions against Iraq in the 1990s that led to widespread malnutrition, lack of clean water, and shortages of medicine and electricity. More recently, US economic warfare against Venezuela has resulted in a severe economic crisis, with one study estimating that sanctions caused 40,000 excess deaths in just 1 year, from 2017 to 2018. Right, so outside of normal deaths that would normally occur, 40,000 is caused from the sanctions that was placed on them by excess deaths that wouldn't have otherwise occurred, right? So until now, researchers have sought to understand the human toll of sanctions on a case-by-case basis. This is difficult work and can only ever give us a partial picture. But that has changed with new research published this year in the Lancet Global Health, which gives us a global view for the first time. Led by the economist Francisco Rodriguez in the University of Denver. The study calculates the total number of excess deaths associated with international sanctions from 1970 to 2021. All right, so back 5 years ago, right, is where the study ends. The results are staggering. So there's going to be more, because we're in 26 now, right? So in the last past 5 years, there's going to be more, right? And again, this is all something you talk white people are responsible for. All right, you act like you know you're some angelic being, right? That loves everybody, whatever. You Christians, right? And good old Christians, because that's supposed to be who's running these governments, right? People that's supposed to believe in God and whatever, right? Because they like to appear righteous, right? So they always talk about believing in God or whatever, right? You know, believing in the Bible, whatever. So it's the Christians that are responsible for all these deaths. It's the Christians that vote, right? And like I said, you don't see yourself as a violent people. You don't see yourselves as bringing much pain and misery and death into the world. You don't look at yourselves like that, but that's the truth. You rather look at other nations and look how violent they are, you know, because they kill one another. But it's the same reason. It's the same sort of situation that you're created in these other nations. Because when you create poverty in a country, people become desperate and they do desperate things and act, you know, out of sorts, become violent and kill one another and do all kind of crazy shit, right? But these are the conditions that you're creating with everybody in the world, okay, by stripping money, like, you know, wealth and, you know, all these prosperity away from people, right? And people just turning on each other and shit. Like you say, you corrupt the minds of people, Jake, you know, giving hip hop fucking drugs and all kinds of different shit, you know. And then you look at us and say, well, we're the violent ones, but you are the cause of the violence. You are the cause of the death. But like I say, you don't like to point the finger at yourselves or blame yourselves for anything. Okay, you like to be not accountable, right? So let me grab that. Is it accountable? Is that the word? No. Hold themselves not guilty. That's the one. All right. This is Zechariah chapter 11, verse 5. It says, "Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty." Esau white people don't like to, you know, be guilt tripped. You don't want to assume responsibility of your actions, man. That you're actually all the cause of all the fucking of the evil in the world. Most of the cause of the evil in the world. right? That you currently complain about. You know, you have a big hand in creating this world that we currently live in, right? And the conditions of the people, right? So they hold themselves not guilty, and they that sell them say, "Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their shepherds pity them not." Right? So you oppress, you slay, you kill, and you hold yourself not guilty for the things that you've done. It's everybody else's fault. You know, you're the most violent. All right. Um, but back here, this is right, associated with 30 million deaths. Right. So in some years during the 1990s, more than 1 million people were killed in a single year just from sanctions. Remember, that's without all the wars, right? All the pestilences, right? All uh, uh, the anxiety you cause that pushes people to suicide and all these different types of things because of your fucking doctrines, your philosophies that you pumping people, you know. Yeah, all that bound together. The death toll is crazy, right? But you're responsible for that, right? So that in 2021, the most recent year of data, sanctions caused more than 800,000 deaths. According to these results, several times more people are killed by sanctions each year than are killed as direct casualties of war. So this is even worse than war in terms of its number of casualties, right? And this is what you love to do. You love to oppress, right? I've got that one saved there already. Yeah, Hosea 12:7. He is a merchant. The balances of the sea are in his hand. He loveth to oppress. Esau loves to oppress, man. He loves to kill. He loves to oppress. He likes to see people suffer, right? He loves to see people suffer. Okay. Um. Says more people are killed by sanctions each year than are killed as direct casualties of war. On average, about 100,000 people per year. More than half of the victims are children and the elderly. Right? And this is why Esau doesn't give no fucks, right? And the scripture tells us he has no pity for the old or the young. He doesn't care. He don't care of the effects that that he's gonna cause in these nations when he puts these sanctions on them, because he knows who it's gonna kill. He knows who's gonna suffer from it, right? He's just gonna keep on doing it until these people rise up and overthrow the government or whatever, or the ruler gives in. That's what he's waiting for. It's like it's a siege. It's a siege. It's a siege, right? And everybody inside the country is going to suffer until something breaks, basically. Someone, someone becomes a traitor or something. You know what I mean? He's waiting for you to break, and this is what he does when he puts sanctions on people, and that's what it's for. But a lot of death is involved in that. A lot of death is involved in that, and he knows that. All right. So people who are the most vulnerable to malnutrition. The study finds that since 2012 alone, sanctions have killed more than 1 million children. But Esau cares about children, right? So-called white people care about children and women and whatever. It's bollocks. Hunger and deprivation are not an accident or accidental byproduct of Western sanctions. They are a key objective. This is clear from a State Department memo written in April 1960, which explains the purpose of US sanctions against Cuba. The memo noted that Fidel Castro and the revolution more broadly enjoyed widespread popularity in Cuba. It argued that every possible means should be undertaken promptly to weaken the economic life of Cuba by denying money and supplies to Cuba, to decrease monetary and real wages, to bring about hunger, desperation, and overthrow of government. Right, he saws in Iran right now. Regime change. Bombing the shit out of people. you know, he's had Iran under sanctions for years. The U.S. government. People have been dying. And they're talking about, Iran's been a problem for 47 years in the theater of war. That in Iraq they killed the soldiers and but you went to Iraq. Iran's never come to you. You come to their doorstep and their neighbor's doorstep and that, right? They don't want you there. So in the theater of war, yeah, man, are gonna die, innit? What the fuck you doing there anyway? Oh, Saddam had nuclear weapons of mass destruction, but where are they? Still haven't found them. So all that is bullshit, false pretense, bullshit excuses as why we need to destroy Iran because for 47 years they've been killing our servicemen and people and all this and that. It's bollocks. It's bollocks, man. Right? America's not defending itself. America has never had to defend itself. Right? No one's come to their doorstep to wage war on them, ever. Right? They're always fighting in someone else's backyard. You know, talk about why are you fighting us? Why are you kidnapping people? What the hell are you talking about? What are you doing here? You know? Anyway, so the power of Western sanctions hinges on their control over the world's reserve currencies. Okay, that's why it's important for America to be the world reserve currency, to keep their hegemony. And that's why they don't like these other nations moving away from the American dollar in dealing with trade and oil and all that type of thing, right? But these other nations, like i.e. China, Russia, the BRICS nations, right? They're trying to move away from it, right? And do deals in other currencies, right? Other than the dollar, because it weakens America. And then these sanctions they can't play as big a role, But these are the reasons why a place like Libya got fucked up, because obviously they were trying to move away from the dollar too and dealing with trade. Right, and so they went in there and took out Gaddafi, even though Gaddafi was one of their boys. All right, it's this is what it's all really about. America's hegemony, right? So the power of Western sanctions hinges on their control over the world's reserve currency, the US dollar and the euro. Right, their control over international payment systems, SWIFT. Right, and their monopoly over essential technologies, example, satellites, cloud computation, software. If countries in the global south wish to chart a more independent path towards a multipolar world, they will need to take steps to limit their dependence in these respects and thus insulate themselves from backlash. The recent experience of Russia shows that such an approach can succeed, right? Because they've been dealing, in their rubles, right? Governments can achieve greater independence by building south-south trade and swap lines outside the core currencies, using regional planning to develop necessary technologies and establishing new payment systems outside of Western control. Indeed, several countries are already taking steps in this direction. Importantly, new systems that have been developed in China, CIPS for international payments and Beidou for satellites, Huawei for telecom, now provide other global south countries alternative options that can become a pathway out of Western dependence and sanction nets, right? And you notice these BRIC nations are all South nations, from South from Russia, obviously, and China, but these other nations that are joined are from the South. Okay, India, Brazil, South Africa. India, did I mention India? Right. So these are all more southern nations, right? Southern hemisphere nations. These steps are necessary for countries that wish to achieve sovereign development, right? But they are also a moral imperative. We cannot accept a world where 500,000 people are killed each year to prop up Western hegemony, right? There we go. An international order that relies on this kind of violence, because a sanction is the type of violence, right? Must be dismantled and replaced. All right, is that the whole article? All right, so yeah, these sanctions are far from just soft power, right? It's an oppressive action that kills these nations' civilians, man. Mostly women and children and the elderly, right? The elderly and children, it said, right? So, and that is the purpose of sanctions, right? Like I say, it doesn't hurt the leaders, right? It hurts the weak, the vulnerable in these nations, right? And everyone becomes more and more vulnerable when the nations You know, finances kind of dry up and shit. All right. Let's see. It's Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 23. It says, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken, right? Because Esau has been a hammer. America and the EU has been a hammer to the whole world, man. All right, an oppressive force, right? That beats down on other nations that are weaker. They beat them down, right? But the time is coming that Esau's power is gonna be taken away from him, and he's not gonna be able to do this anymore because he's not gonna have no power to flex on people. You know, the Most High is gonna take him out, right? This war that he's waging right now with Iran and everything's that's gonna come from this is gonna end with America's destruction and Europe's destruction, basically NATO. Right, they're not gonna have any power in the earth anymore. Right, because the Most High is going to destroy America with fire, and the angels are not going to destroy the world's armies. So there's going to be no power to flex anymore. Right, they're going to be under our rulership. Okay. It's Isaiah 14 verse 6 says, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. Let me read up a little bit, right? Verse 4. It says, thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, how have the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased, right? The golden city is speaking about America, right? They are the chief oppressors on the planet, right? The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked, right? Which represents their power, the authority, right? And the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. We just read it every year. Like, the numbers are going up. Right, people that are placed under sanctions, it started with 15, and now it was like 20 or 30, and now it's like 60, and the number keeps it's still moving up. Right, they're continuously oppressing nations. Oh, you put sanctions and tariffs and all these different types of things, or they're just straight up waging war against you, man. Got proxy armies up in there. You know. So Pete Hegseth wants to talk about 47 years Iran have been killing our servicemen and all that kind of stuff, right? So when it comes to your people and over a span of time, right, we have to acknowledge that and be angry about it and get reparations for it, right? Some sort of get back. But when it comes to anybody else, no one cares. Like all these operations you've done in the Middle East and in Africa and all these different places, right? The people you've killed and the people you're responsible, whose deaths you're responsible for, then they're not allowed to get back. They're not allowed to be angry. Because if you get angry, you're a savage. You're just violent. You're just a violent person. We was there for righteous reasons, and you're getting angry, because you killed, destroyed you at a wedding. You know what I mean? Like, there's people that you're making angry and bringing death to, right? And they want justice, and they will never get it. As long as you're in power, they will never get it. Same with us. As long as you're in power, the Negroes, the Native Americans will never get justice for the evil shit that you've done to us. Right? That is why Yahushua has to come and bring justice for us. Right? Because it's a whole big ass double standards going on, right? Because you're in power and no one can do nothing, but you can get back because you can drop bombs on people. Oh, this is why we're doing this. So it's just, right? Because you have to appear just, right? So you make a statement or make it appear that you're doing this for just reasons. Oh, because they've been attacking us for 47 years. Bro, what about the 300, 400 years of slavery you had Jacob? What about all of that? So when it comes to our revenge now, like, bro, it's based for the 400, 300, however many years it was that you had us in oppression and chaining us and whipping us and killing us, right? We have the most just and righteous cause, right? But because it doesn't favor you, it doesn't benefit you in the slightest, right? You ain't gonna go for that. You're gonna tell us it's evil. You're gonna tell us it's evil to want you in chains and destroyed. You're gonna tell us it's evil, bro. But when you do it, it's not evil, though. No? It's hypocrisy. And everyone should be able to see that. But because you white people, white people are the devil, right? You're gonna see back you guys, isn't it? Obviously. All right. But yeah, back in it. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hinder it. Right. So when the Most High brings judgment upon you, man, ain't nobody be able to prevent it from happening. Not all your demons that you pray to, you consult. None of your technology is gonna help you, right? None of these nations, these so-called allies, which you're losing by the day, ain't nobody coming to help you, right? Because no one can help you. No one can stop it, right? It says the whole earth is at rest, right? And the earth will be at rest, man. Right? Once these nations have received their punishment for their wickedness, their evil, right? The earth is going to be at peace, right? They ain't going to be under some totalitarian dictatorship, right? Because at home, we preach democracy and freedoms and liberties and choice, right? But what the other world, what everybody is really receiving is a dictatorship, right? Oppression. They don't have choice. You do things by force. You don't do things by vote. You vote a guy in, and then he's free to do what the hell he wants to do. There's no voting. There's no decision making. Discussions going on. Between the common person and these ruling elites. Whatever. There's no discussion there. They do what the hell they want to do, and you get duped into voting for someone that's not in your interest every time, because they never stick to what they say. And Trump is a shining example of that right now. But some of these MAGAs are just gassed, right? They're just backing Trump to the end of the earth, and good for you, So the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. The fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, "Since thou art laid down, no feather has come up against us." Right? People are just at rest. These people are going to be at rest. The animals, everything, the trees themselves, the wildlife, bro. They're just going to be, less oppressed. Right? Everything is dying. Esau is destroying everything. Right? Everything. Through his actions. Right? Polluting the earth. Everything that he does brings death and destruction. And he's responsible for so much death that really is not calculable. Right? These guys have done their best to calculate, deaths from sanctions and that, but really Esau's toll is uncalculable. It can't be counted because he's responsible for so much. And that's just human deaths as well. Think about all the wildlife and that. Think the animals beaching themselves, man. It's a lot. It's a lot. The ecosystems he's destroyed, which led to deaths of certain species and people, even livelihoods. Right? It's a lot. And the so-called white man Esau, Edom, is responsible, man. But like I said, he doesn't get the moniker or the label, the stigma of being a violent man. Because he controls his own PR, right? And as soon as you agree, disagree with the PR, and that you're the hateful one, you're the bad guy. That's what he does. He just flips it on you, man, because he controls everything. All right. That's what I want from that. It's Micah chapter 2 verse 2 says that they covet fields and take them by violence, right? Let's say Esau's always eyeing up, things that he can take, right? And these will be his real reasons to go somewhere and do something, right? But on outwardly, he will tell you that these guys are murdering children or something, whatever he needs to say to get people like behind him and rallied up, get them emotionally invested. He'll say. And then he'll roll in there, righteous conquest, righteous, endeavors or whatever, and blow some shit up, have a whole bunch of civilians killed in the process, and then take the resources. That's what he does, right? So they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Right? You can't live under Esau's rulership, man. It's just nothing but oppression. Right, I read that one earlier, Hosea 12:7. This is Revelations 11 verse 18. It says, "And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged, that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants, the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and should just destroy them, which destroyed the earth. So like I mentioned, Esau, he's responsible for a lot of death and destruction, right? And it all has to be accounted for. The Most High is not letting him off anything, right? Everything that he's done, he's going to pay for. And this is why America is going to receive such a great judgment. All the deaths he's caused directly and indirectly, whether it be man, whether it be, mammal, animals, anything, everything, right? He's going to have to, be brought to charges on. Right? Because like I said, he's death and destruction is incalculable. It's crazy. Only the Most High knows like what the true, numbers and effects that he's had on the planet, on the people. Right? But the Most High is going to deal with him justly, right? In balance. Right? But it just happens to be your wickedness is so great that the Most High just like, you've done enough, you've done too much. Right? So you don't have a place on the planet no more. That's what the Most High is going to do. He's going to get rid of you permanently. Right? After you've been, served your punishment. Like, you're getting put on death row, Esau. Right? You're going to serve your time in jail, and the day's going to come, you're going to get put in that fucking chair. Or in this case, a fire. Right? And that's it. That's your sentence. For all that you've done. Because it's irredeemable. You're irredeemable. And that's kind of funny because, like, in your eyes, like, Jake, you Negroes, to you, we're irredeemable. Right? But really, you're the irredeemable one. And then the Most High said it. Right? The Most High said it boldly to your face that you're irredeemable, bro. You're done. Because you've done too much wickedness. And there's no forgiveness for you. There's no mercy for you. All right? And just to end it on this, it's Proverbs 29 verse 2. Right? So when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. Right? With all this death and destruction going around, man, these people are not in a rejoicing state of mind. Because they're not free or at peace to be happy. There's always something they've got to be concerned about. Right? And it doesn't even matter if Esau's not even in your country. Like I said, he's causing problems in everybody's country. He's responsible for your sadness, for your anxiety and shit. For your struggle. Everybody feels the weight of Esau around the whole fucking world, man, because of what he does. And it takes its toll, man. So people out here, they go, they do their escapism thing, trying to blow off some steam and that. But overall, the lives of the people are crap. Right? These men are downtrodden, And this is why Esau's going to be replaced. Right? And we're going to replace them. We're going to be Hawashai in our kingdom, our everlasting kingdom, right? Our righteous kingdom. Right? He's going to replace that. Right? And after you get your ass whooped, right, because you deserve it, right, for your evil wickedness that you've done, right, you're going to breathe a lot easier. You're going to breathe a lot easier, man. You're going to enjoy life a lot more. Right? The difference is going to be night and day. Right? Because we don't need to oppress the people like Esau oppresses the people, man. Yeah, we're gonna establish law and order. Yeah, sure. Right? But we ain't gonna be going around the world and demanding, everything, pretty much, and terrorizing you just because there's something on your land. No, you're gonna give your tithe, your offerings or whatever, right? And the rest is yours to do what you want to do with. Right? Esau, let me finish up on this actually. It's Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him. Right? Esau's not right. He ain't righteous, right? He of the left, right? Sinister, right? But the just shall live by his faith, right? Yea, also because he transgresses by wine, right? His philosophies, the way his ideologies, the way he thinks, right? It's wrong, right? He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, right? He all up in everybody's business, man, all around the world. Why? because he wants control. He wants to control all things, right? Neither keepeth at home who enlargeth his desire as hell. We're going to be blessed, man. We're going to have all that we need. Like, these elites of Esau have all that they really need, man, but they can't stop. They want to see everybody have nothing. That's what they want. We're not going to be like that because, bro, everybody needs things, bro. Everyone should be like living righteous and, decent lives. No one should be so oppressed. I mean, there's always going to be poor, but poor is just relative to someone that's rich. Like, no one that is going to be, deemed poor should be fucking homeless on the fucking street and drugged out of their minds and all that kind of shit. That shit won't be going on in the kingdom. Even the poor of people will live good lives. Because there's no reason to oppress the people to the extent where they just down and out, like, permanently. There's no reason to take so much from them. But Esau, like I say, he don't care. He don't care. He'll take till there's nothing left. Right? Who large of his desire is hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heateth unto him all people. Right? That's why he's out there everywhere, bothering people, man. Putting sanctions on people, causing their people to die. Just because he wants to do something there. He wants something from that particular nation or whatever. So shall not all these take up a parable against him and a taught in proverb, right, against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. Right? So you're trying to increase by means that don't belong to you. By stealing. By murdering. Right? It says, how long, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay? Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and await that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? Because thou hast spoiled many nations, and all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee because of the men's blood, because of the death that you've caused, and for the violence of the land, and of the city, and of all that dwell therein. Woe to him that converteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, right? To be higher than everybody else, to be richer and more powerful than everybody else. Comes at the cost of everybody else. Grinding other nations into the dirt. Okay, we're not going to need to do that in the kingdom. The Israelites ain't going to need to do that to substantiate their power, because we're just going to have power. It's not going to be something that's going to be tied to financials. Like, Esau needs bare money to build bare missiles and rockets and nukes and all these different things, aircrafts, right? He needs money for that. Our power is spiritual, right? It comes from the Heavenly Father. It doesn't take investment. You know what I mean? So we're not going to be draining bare people just so we can have the biggest nukes, because we ain't got no need for them, right? We ain't gonna have no need for them. We're gonna have spiritual power, right? So that's one thing that won't be happening. War won't be happening. There's no need for it, right? So you nations ain't gonna be investing in no war equipment, no arsenal. You're gonna need to do all of that, and we ain't gonna need money for the war effort, because we ain't gonna be no fucking wars. And we're gonna have all the power that we need. So, the whole dynamics of the new world of the kingdom is gonna be different, right? There's gonna be no need to drain nations for our own benefit. It's not gonna be necessary. The Lord, we're gonna be blessed. We'll be good, yeah, fuck it, right? So woe to him that converteth an evil confessions to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out the wall, and the beam out the timber shall answer it. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish a city by iniquity. All right. So yeah, you was always doomed to fail. But like I say, no matter what Esau's doing, he's always causing death. He is a merchant of death, right? He's responsible for the most deaths, throughout the world, throughout history, right? And this sanctions part, which is supposed to be soft power, right? It's not meant to be, brutal, like in a military sense, killing people, but it kills more people than the wars that they wage themselves. And Esau knows exactly what these things do. Right? So Esau's not, he ain't that fucking loving, bro. You know what I mean? The people like to think, he's, he loves everybody, right? Because he's a Christian. Bro, Esau doesn't care about your life. He doesn't care about life, in period, right? He don't care. Right? He knows what his actions do. He's not stupid. Right? His purpose is to kill people and destroy people. That's what he likes to do. Right? Because by the sword thou shalt live. And that's how he lives, man. Right? By killing people. Right? That's why you're the most violent person on the planet. That's why you need to be gotten rid of. Because the world isn't in peace with you in power. All right? So I'm going to end it there. Lord willing, this has been edifying. And I'll catch you brothers and sisters on the next video. Until next time, I say shalom.